Hey everyone, it's Intel here. So it has been a while since I've made a video on Badlion Client. My last video on Badlion Client was about a year ago. I did not have too many good things to say about Badlion Client at that time. The client was just really clunky, the menus looked awful, the mods weren't even centered properly. Since then, a lot of things have changed with the Minecraft client environment in general. Badlion Client has steadily decreased in players, and Lunar Client has far taken over when it comes to popularity. And most of the other clients which I've talked about in the past have pretty much fallen into obscurity. Badlion Client and Lunar Client, and then maybe LabbyMod are really the only big players in the game now, and there's also Feather Client, which just came out, which I'm actually interested to hear if you guys want me to try it or not. But anyways, it's been over a year since I've last given my thoughts on Badlion Client, and I know a lot of things have changed, so I decided to use Badlion Client exclusively for a week. And in this video, I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the latest version on Badlion Client, comparing it with Lunar Client, and whether or not I think Badlion Client is worth using in 2022. Before I get into the video, I do need to say a few things. First of all, I am a Lunar partner, but in no way is that going to influence this review. And second, my merch drop is ending this Monday, so 2 days after this video goes live. If you want to get in on the drop, then make sure to check the link in the description. It's been going super well so far. We have two different types of hoodies, the Wave hoodie and the Sakura hoodie, and people really love the design on these. Both of them also have matching beanies that you can purchase with them as well. They're really nice hoodies. I wear them all the time when I go out. They're super comfortable. So if you guys want to secure one for yourself, then make sure to check the link in the description, and remember to be fast because we are going to stop selling these on Monday. But anyways, with all that being said, let's go ahead and get right into the video. So this is the new Badlion Client, and I'm starting on the main menu screen because this looks so much better than what it used to look like. The old menu looked awful. It was way too cluttered. Badlion Client pretty much shoved their cosmetics down your throat. The old menu deviated way too far from vanilla Minecraft, but this is so much better. A few minor complaints that I have is that I still don't like the text on Badlion Client. Like, I don't know what it is. The font just doesn't look good to me, and it doesn't really look sharp, especially when compared to something like Lunar Client. And then the second thing that sort of annoys me is the fact that single player and multiplayer look completely different from each other. The multiplayer menu uses this custom layout and it doesn't look that bad, but the fact that it's different from single player just annoys me. In my opinion, they should have stuck with the same looking menu for both single and multiplayer. I don't know why it's different. I prefer the vanilla look of the single player menu, that's just my preference, but I think they should have kept the same thing for both single player and multiplayer. Heading in game and opening up the mods menu, you can see that things look completely different than how it used to look. By default, all the menus and settings are on the side, but I would recommend changing that immediately by going into settings, menus, and then selecting it to center menu. But this is their new settings menu, and it is a big improvement. You can really see that Badlion Client cleaned up their menus a lot. Like, this looks way better than it used to look. When it comes to mods, there's a million different mods. Badlion Client has so many things, ranging from high stats to name history to oof mod, whatever the hell that is. Badlion Client, out of all the other clients that I've tried, definitely has more mods in it, but more mods doesn't necessarily mean better. Most players, like myself, aren't going to use 90% of all of these mods, and they're going to be completely useless. So while Badlion Client has more mods than Lunar, it really doesn't matter that much for most people. And if it did matter, then Badlion Client would have more players than Lunar at this point. I do want to say though that even though Badlion Client did clean up their menus a lot, I think Lunar Client still has better looking menus. Something about the font with Badlion Client I just really dislike. Like, it just does not look good to me. I can't put my finger on what it is, if it's the font itself or if the fonts are lacking like drop shadows or anti-aliasing or something. But anyways, you guys can see on screen that I have pretty much all my mods configured how I want them to be. I have all the mods that I use set up the way that I want them to, and they look a lot better than what they used to look like in the past. In the top right of my screen, you can see my keystrokes, CPS, and FPS mods, and Badlion Client has made major improvements to how these look. In the past, the text in the modules like the CPS and FPS modules weren't centered properly. Not only that, but the text didn't have a drop shadow to them, so the text just looks really bad. Badlion Client has thankfully fixed both of those things. I did have to tweak around to change the colors of the keystrokes mod, but other than that, everything looked fine. Now with that being said, I still do have some complaints with some of the other mods that I use. The first one is the status effect mod. So you can see in the GUI editor that the status effect mod is centered on my screen, but in game, if I only have one status effect, it's not centered. How it works is that if you only have one status effect, it'll appear at the very top of where you have the status effect mod placed, and when you apply more status effects, they'll just position themselves below each other. This means that unless you have 6 active status effects, then this will never be centered. I don't know why it's like this. It's really annoying because nobody ever has 6 status effects active at once. So always having like my speed status effect uncentered while I'm in the Hypixel lobby, it just annoys me, man. Another mod I had a problem with was the nick hider mod. So if I go into the nick hider settings, I have hide names and hide own name enabled, but if I nick random and I type in chat, you can see that it doesn't hide my nick at all. It's just really buggy. Even if I use user real skin for self, like I have that enabled, but my skin is still my nick skin. The nick hider mod was pretty much unusable for me, and that's a mod that I need because I'm a content creator. And also the lack of the 3D skins mod is honestly quite sad. There's no 3D skin mod on Badlion Client. And also Badlion Client messes up the glasses on my skin. Like they're supposed to be transparent, but they're filled in. It looks like I'm blind or something. Another thing I find sort of annoying is the GUI editor. I really like the GUI editor on Lunar Client. I think it's far superior. I like the fact that you can just press right shift and just start moving things around and closing out of stuff. With Badlion Client, you have to press this little pencil icon to get into the GUI editor. What I don't like is that it's sort of a pain to resize mods to make them the same size as other mods. You sort of have to eyeball it to get it the same size as everything else, and it's really annoying that you can't just set like a specific size like you can on Lunar Client. On Lunar Client, you can go to your mod settings from the GUI and set all your mods to one specific size, and you can also disable mods from the GUI, which is really useful if you just have some random mod that you don't know on screen and you want to close out of it. Badlion Client's GUI editor is just far inferior in comparison. Regarding FPS, accurately measuring how much better the FPS is on one client compared to another client is honestly really difficult. I tried to create some type of test where I could compare Badlion Client's FPS to Lunar Client's FPS, but it sort of failed miserably. Completely off topic, but someone bright in this community needs to create a Minecraft benchmark map. Like that would be so useful for this type of stuff. But anyways, I'm just gonna tell you my personal experience. So I have a pretty high-end PC. My PC uses an RTX 3070 and an Intel i7-12700K. With my experience comparing Badlion Client to Lunar Client was always marginally better when it comes to FPS, but most of the time they felt really similar in FPS, and it was quite hard to tell. Of course, you may get different results depending on what PC specs you have. I think from what I've seen, most people get slightly better FPS on Lunar Client, but you should test it for yourself if you're not confident. Okay, before I give my conclusion, there's one more thing that I forgot to mention that I want to bring up. I hate that you have to create a Badlion account to use Badlion Client. Like it's so stupid. To play on Badlion Client, you need to log into your Minecraft account and then log in with a Badlion account. Why? I like to avoid creating random accounts that I can, and it's so unnecessary and pointless that you need a Badlion account to play on Badlion Client. Badlion Client is the only free client that I know that requires you to do this, and it's stupid and it pisses me off. So with all of my thoughts laid out in front of you, is Badlion Client worth using in 2022? I do think that Badlion Client has made a lot of good improvements since I last checked out their client, and they have fixed a lot of the things that I complained about. Aesthetically, I still think they're inferior to Lunar Client, and hold up, let me say something else. Badlion Client, change your logo. Your logo is stupid. It looks ugly. Badlion has used the same logo since the Badlion server has existed, and it is so outdated. And this matters a lot because that logo is practically plastered everywhere on the client, and a lot of the menus are themed based off of the color palette that's used in the logo, which is also disgusting. So Badlion Client, if you actually want to look good aesthetically, revise your logo, make a new one, and don't make it blue or yellow. Either base it off of one color or make it black and white. Okay, small rants aside, even though Badlion Client has made a lot of good improvements since I last reviewed it, as someone that uses Lunar Client, there's really no incentive for me to switch over to Badlion Client. Lunar still looks aesthetically better in my opinion, and they have all the mods that I want to use personally. Not to mention, they're getting constant feature updates, and they just have a much bigger market share at this point. On Hypixel, almost everyone I see nowadays is on Lunar Client. Even though I think that Badlion Client on its own is pretty solid, Lunar Client has just gotten so good to the point where I can't find a reason to switch to another PvP client, unless you need one of the mods that's exclusive to Badlion Client, like for example Replay mod, which admittedly a lot of players do use, or for whatever reason Lunar Client just doesn't run well on your PC and Badlion Client runs better. For most people, I think that Lunar Client is just better off worth using. I know that may not be the conclusion that some people want to hear, and I know that people are going to call me biased, but I wouldn't be partnered with the Lunar Client if I didn't think that they were the best PvP client. And that's going to be pretty much it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you considered leaving a like or possibly subscribing. It does help me out a lot and encourages me to make more content. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. What do you think of Badlion Client? And make sure to comment some other clients you'd like to see me make videos on in the future. But with that being said, thank you so much for watching once again. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.